Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Wiki Weekends, where we delve through a wiki of our choice to bring you a hopefully entertaining video. I'm your host for this episode, Lucas Holland, and as always, I am joined by the lovely Karl Smallwood.
Hell yeah, that's me.
This week we don't get, whoa!
Nah, man. No, you got to keep people on their toes. I don't want to be just be doing one thing my entire life. What would that be like?
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, doing the same thing for 10 years.
Speaking of doing the same thing for over 10 years, Karl.
Okay, where's this going?
This is going to a TV show that aired for over 10 years.
Let's go. I'm ready. I'm in. Right away.
17 seasons in. It ran from 2003 to 2016. It is, of course, one of my favourite shows of all time, Mythbusters. Just a show that's like, fuck it, we're gonna make, like, edutainment actually entertainment.
First of all, I'm just going to give the shout-outs I always give a shout-outs to, and it is that subreddit that edits Mythbusters episodes down to 20 minutes long. Because, like, if Mythbusters being an American show, as we're about to discuss, just, you can tell when you watch... Americans probably might not realise, over here, watching Mythbusters is almost impossible, because just the amount of obvious cuts where the ads would be for the American version, the amount of times they repeat themselves, because they're expecting that you're coming back after like a 2-minute ad. Mm-hmm. So there's just people who just edit down them to 20-minute long videos.
And I think what they do as well, because like normally what they'll do is have like 2 or 3 myths running throughout, but they'll cut between them. I think that specific one, like gets like the one myth, and instead of spreading out over the 50 minutes, it cuts those all together, so you just have like one myth. Obviously, it's one of those weird things where, yeah, it's cut to keep people's attention, because that way, if you spread out the ending of the myth for each one to the very end of the show, that retains people throughout. And it's like, it's such a produced TV show in that way.
Yeah, it's slickly produced is the word for it. Mm-hmm. It's still very well made, and obviously I think everyone enjoyed watching Mythbusters as a kid. It's like, they just blow things up.
That might be the most beautiful shockwave we have ever recorded. Look at it. It's like a lens. It's like a Photoshop effect.
I'm a person that, especially as I've gotten older, like, I don't really like the ones where it's like, here's a big explosion. I don't mind them. They're entertaining to watch still, but the ones for me that I always enjoyed, and I guess we can like maybe bring up some examples of our favourites, are like the more like not always down to earth ones necessarily, because they still put a lot of like money and production into a lot of them, especially as they get more budget later down the line, but just the ones that aren't necessarily focused on a big explosion are the ones that normally intrigue me more. I
think what things I always appreciate about the show is they'll say, okay, is this a myth or is this not? Like, say, one that I remember is like, are elephants afraid of mice?
Clear as day. The mouse came out, the elephant stopped in its tracks, like, whoa, and then it gently tiptoed away as if this thing was deadly.
Say, like, a bull in a china shop. Like, they actually test it and they put a bull in a china shop, and that's, like, surprising. Like, the bull just daintily runs around.
Yeah, the bull just avoided every single aisle in the china shop.
But then when they don't manage to do something, they'll, like, say, okay, so what would the scenario have to be for the myth to work, to show how unrealistic it is? Like the one of, I think there's one about, can someone being really muscular or really, like, overweight save you from a bullet?
And then it's, well, they can't. How many, like, stacks of fat do we have to put in front of somebody's, like, internal organs before just the fat would stop the bullet? And they take it to the extreme lengths, yeah.
To answer the question, I've always liked that aspect of Mythbusters.
For fat to be an effective bullet stopper, it's going to have to be stopped before it makes it through all of this fat and into the ballistics gel in the torso here.
It's a bit unsatisfying to be like, I guess it doesn't work. The satisfying thing is push it to the extreme to make it work anyway.
Let's see how unrealistic the myth actually is by, like you said, pushing it to the extreme to see if we can make this thing work the way the myth would suggest.
Maybe to just open up this episode, is there anything that like comes to your mind as like a favoured myth when you think about the Mythbusters?
I think bull in a china shop, because even they go, we thought this was like going to be a slam dunk of like,
so
it's
easy.
A bull.
Yeah.
Like, of course the bull's just going to like charge right the way through, and it's just daintily walking around like all these like pots and pans.
I think we're going to have to just admit it. It's a stupid saying. I'm never going to use it again. Bull in a china shop busted.
Busted.
Yeah, it's busted.
Speaking of bulls as well, it was also interesting to see that, like, a bull doesn't give a crap about the colour red.
Yeah.
What they care about is the fact that there's someone jumping around an arena inside it. Like,
which is fairly well known now, but I think it's Mythbusters who popularised that misconception. It's like bulls aren't attracted to the red flag, it's the waving of the flag.
It's the movement that they give a shit about. They literally put, I think it was Tori at the time, like, in a giant red jumpsuit and just have him stand still, and the bull just doesn't really care, like, notices that he's there, but doesn't really care about his presence.
And it was a perfect result. One, I didn't get hurt, but two, the bull came out and it was looking at us, but his attention was always on the bullfighters.
For me, I rewatch Mythbusters over and over again. Like, I fall asleep, so I watched it that much. It's just like,
it's a good comfort show.
It is a good, and there's so many. There's 296 episodes according to this wiki, and it did do 282 total episodes before its cancellation in 2016, and then of course they did a massive revival of it, Carl, that lasted all of 3 months.
And let me guess, was the revival on a streaming service or was it online?
Network Science Channel, it says.
And how long did it go on for?
They did one Mythbusters The Search season, defying the two new hosts, and then the actual new version of it lasted from November 15th, 2017 to February 28th, 2018. It was literally like one season that lasted 3 months, and just they were like, it's not the same without the original hosts, Adam and Jamie.
And it's that thing as well, like, they probably could find a host to do that, but like, there's not many personalities I can think of who have that level of nerd charisma, I guess I'd call it.
I watched through Mythbusters The Search, and I think both of them are good personalities. I think both of them are good hosts. I think both of them are very well informed and have a good skill set. It's just not Mythbusters. Like, you get used to these people, and we talk about parasocial relationships all the time. I'm sure that's the exact kind of thing here of, you got used to two people running this show and being the host of this show, and 13 years of it, and just all of a sudden it's like, well, now the two new people who are the exact same, and it's like,
you just can't replace that chemistry. But also Jamie Hyneman just being such he's such a weird dude.
He's also such an accomplished person.
That's when you go read his Wikipedia page, I'll bring that up as when you mention them and stuff.
Mythbusters is a science entertainment television program developed by Peter Rees and produced by Australia's Beyond Television Productions. And then it premiered on the Discovery Channel on January 23rd, 2003. The show's original hosts, special effects experts Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman, used elements of the scientific method to test the validity of rumours, myths, movie scenes, adages, internet videos, and news stories. And I think that's one of the strengths of it, is originally it was fan folk and myths and rumours, and they also for the first couple of seasons just had this folklore person. The early seasons they do some weird stuff that I think they've spoken on more recently of maybe we would have not done some of that weird stuff to begin with.
I do like some of the things are just common misconceptions as well. Things that people would believe that would be dangerous. I think they do a lot of an entire episode about drinking. Is there any way to avoid a breathalyzer test? And they can prove conclusively, no, don't drink and drive.
I'd say it's pretty fairly busted.
Pretty fairly busted. I'd say it's definitively busted. You can't beat the breath test.
The same with speeding as well.
Yeah.
It's here's 20 different ways that we've conclude that you will get caught regardless.
Because that's the thing, there's always someone who's like, no, actually, you didn't do it, even though you took it to its logical extreme and did it way more, comprehensively than any reasonable person would, I still think you're wrong.
I enjoy the fact that they both take that feedback and test it, and B, are willing to admit when they messed up.
That's science, isn't it? You test it to
is
prove that you're
science.
right. But just before you move on, I did look up just Jamie Hyneman, just a brief overview of his career here on Wikipedia. He's worked as a boat captain, a certified dive master, a wilderness survival expert, a linguist, and he owned a pet store. He's also an animal wrangler, a machinist, a concrete inspector, and a professional chef. He owns several patents and a special effects company. He owns a patent on two-wheeled football shoes for Nike.
Yeah, it's one of those wild things where every now and then they just drop some lore.
Yeah, what he used to do.
Oh, yeah, they're just doing one today where they swim underwater. Did you know that Jamie was a dive master for 20 years? It's
That's what he became like this, like almost like mythological figure. He became like an element of folklore in of itself. Of just like, what else does Jamie know how to do?
I mean, how old is Jamie Hyneman? Does it say there, or can I click on it here?
I can double check how old like Jamie Hyneman is for you. I want to say
he's born in 56.
67 years old.
His current age is 67. But bear in mind, some of these episodes were airing 20 years ago, and they're still dropping lore of like this 47-year-old guy. I'm like, did you know he spent 20 years doing this thing? And it's, how many careers has this guy mastered in the space of 30 years?
Just a true Renaissance man.
But last thing is, like, Jamie Hyneman and Adam Savage were the original, two hosts. A major part of the show's success was also the fact that, shout out to, like, they had a couple of other people help out. They had guests in and stuff. But, of course, the other three, like, main hosts over the years were Carrie Byron, Tori Bellucci, and Grant O'Hara.
Yes.
I don't think that the show... Like, of course, the show started with some success, but the show wouldn't have been what it was without those three either.
I don't know about dangerous, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, they're like the Mythbusters kids.
Yeah, because I think they were like the build team, quote unquote, and
they would get the sense to do like smaller myths, like little mini myths.
At the start, yes. Yeah. But eventually they became like an almost equal part of the show in terms of doing massive things themselves. Recently noticed that like, the final season got added to Amazon Prime, and I watched through that again. And they had like disputes over pay with those three.
Yep.
So the final season of Mythbusters is just Jamie and Adam again. It feels hollow because they don't have those three there, and you got so used to their personalities over the years. You
just added, like you said, it's variety to the show. Because they're all like as accomplished as Jamie Hyneman is. They were two old dudes. So when you brought in like Grant, he was like a robotics expert.
It's really interesting to see, like every time, just each one of them can provide some different appeal to the show. And as you say, like Grant, for example, with all the robotics he can build.
The collaborative nature of it. Of like them trying to solve an issue of like, okay, so how would we make this work? And just seeing like, a bunch of different people, like, just collaborate on this thing of like, okay, how are we going to do this?
I figured the only fair thing is because we all worked on it, that we draw straws. Yeah.
It really is just a perfect example of like, teamwork, communication, sometimes competitiveness, to try and just figure out like, how do we test some of these things that are like so difficult to test. I think one of my favourite ones that they struggled to ever test, and they barely got a definitive answer, was do ducks quacks echo? Which is
so stupid a myth.
It is. But it's like a thing of like, well, a duck's quack never echoes. And it's like, but how would you figure that out?
And also as well, as stupid as it sounds, you have to prove it. Because it's like, never forget, Lucas, that for literally thousands of years, it was like, well, heavy objects fall faster than lighter ones. And then no one bothered to test it. Ever. Like, it was just not... People just didn't test it. Like, until Galileo went to the top of, like, a fucking tower and just dropped shit off it and realised, no, they don't.
We all know the ducks' quacks don't echo. It's like, but has anyone sat down...
and tested it?
And actually gotten a proper recording of a duck's quack and tried to locate an echo?
Quack, damn you. Does that mean it echoes?
You know what? It's just hard to tell. Definitely the echo.
Definitely the echo.
Mythbusted.
Don't be so hasty. Mythbusted, let's go home. See ya.
Think of Principia, by Isaac Newton, where it's like 400 pages to prove definitively that 1 + 1 = 2. And you think, well, that's stupid, of course 1 + 1 = 2, but how do you know that? And if we can't firmly establish that this is the case, all mathematics, which is built upon this very simple concept, would be moot. And I'm reminded of something called the Mpemba effect. And are you familiar with the... I think we mentioned it before.
I think you have. I recognise the name, but I don't remember what it is.
So the Mpemba effect is the name given to the phenomenon of hot water freezing faster than cold water. And it was first discovered by a guy called Erasto Mpemba, who discovered it as a child when he was living in Tanzania, and they would make ice cream. And you would get milk, sugar, boil the milk, put the resulting solution in the freezer. And he noticed that if he put the hot milk in before letting it cool, it would freeze faster than cold milk. And when he told his teacher about this, then, well, no, that's not the case. Cold things freeze faster than hot things. And he's like, but I've tested this, and my hot things freeze faster than cold things. No, that's not how it works. He's like, but has anyone ever tested that? And no one had. And it was just a kid making ice cream, realised this thing. It was scientific fact, quote unquote, that cold things freeze faster than hot things. Until
the temperature just starts lower, so it makes more sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It makes sense in your head, but that's why, like, if you put boiled water in the freezer, it freezes quicker.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird phenomena that doesn't make sense logically, but that's how it works.
And that's the thing as well. Mythbusters tested that.
They had one where it's like, how's the fastest way to chill your beer and stuff like that.
That's where they got liquid nitrogen, right? Because that's the thing, they always do say, okay, now let's do the stupid version of just like, what's the most dangerous thing we can do?
So it begins with like, well, do you use like cold salt water, cold salted ice water, just ice water, put it in a fridge, put it in a freezer, and then it's like, how about we just pour liquid nitrogen all over it? Fuck it.
Just see what happens.
At minus 200 degrees centigrade, you probably won't find liquid nitrogen behind the bar of your local, but it certainly is cold.
The history of the Mythbusters here, the series concept was developed for the Discovery Channel as Tall Tales or True by Australian writer and producer Peter Rees of Beyond Productions in 2002. Discovery rejected the proposal initially because they had just commissioned a series on the same topic. Rees then refined the pitch to focus on testing key elements of the stories rather than just retelling them. And can you imagine how boring Mythbusters would be if it just told you myths?
The thing is, that's a lot of shows, isn't it? There's a lot of shows of that ilk. Like, do you know what I'm reminded of? Do you remember, like, the short-lived British answer to Mythbusters of Brainiac, which was so
It's funny
shit?
you say it, because just as I finished watching, I was like, let's put an episode of Brainiac on. And it immediately opens with, like, real, like, some weird sexist shit and homophobic stuff, just, like, right there on the front page, episode 1, and I was like, no, this is not okay.
Never forget, like, one of the episodes, like, or one of the gimmicks for a series is, does this fruit float? And they will get, like, an actual scientist and put her in a bikini.
Which fruit floats? Featuring Professor Mayang Lee and her big basket of fruit.
Did you really have to get a woman on a bikini? Like, and so much of that show was like, let's do science where there's naked women around, or women in bikinis. So.
And that's a shame, because there were some interesting ones on there, like where they made a guy with motion sickness get sick without moving. Like they put him in like a tent, and they move the tent in a circle around him.
Oh, he's going! He's going! Fantastic! He's gone! What a result! It works!
And just like the comparison between, like, you know, Jamie and Adam, who have like a genuine enthusiasm for, like, you know, special effects and science and, you know, like just mechanical engineering, and then just get Richard Hammond just coming on stage and going, look at these tits! Yeah. It's like, well, he's Jeremy Clarkson here.
The fact that the British version essentially tried to be like, well, no one's actually interested in science. If we just put boobs on the screen
and blow everything
people
up,
may pay attention long enough to watch the science part. It's like, no, science is inherently interesting if you just present it in the correct manner, which is exactly what Mythbusters did. And Mythbusters is essentially credited for a resurgence in people giving a shit about science in America for like a large group of that generation. They just presented it. They had like nearly 13 years of TV that just made science fun.
Yep.
To say here that Jamie Heineman was one of a number of special effects artists who was asked to prepare a casting video for network consideration.
Yes.
He had interviewed previously for a segment on our popular science series Beyond 2000 about the British-American robot combat television series Robot Wars, and according to Adam Savage, Heineman thought himself too uninteresting to host the series on his own.
Which is weird. Yeah, he's such an interesting man, but I guess like he just doesn't like talking about himself.
Yeah, he does seem like a super private person. He does seem like a lot of the time he doesn't seem to care for the presentation side of the TV show aspect of the TV show.
Yeah, he's charismatic, but in the way that he's like more enigmatic. But they did need like a more outgoing personality like Adam Savage, I feel.
Adam was a perfect foil to him, and it's funny because like always, you know, the thing comes up of like, did you know they weren't friends? And it's like, no, they were co-workers. Like,
yeah, I always respected the way Jamie Heineman put that. Of like, I respect his work, but with different people and with different interests.
We don't like hanging out outside of work, but we work well together.
Yeah,
and we have our differences, but we produced a really good television show very well for 13 years and we can move on.
It's like, what would we talk? We don't have many shared interests.
Mm-hmm. And they're just not... You can see on the TV show, they are basically polar opposite personalities.
Yep.
It's like you can actively see at times where like Adam's just wildness and immaturity just clearly pisses off Jamie.
Oh yeah, he hates it. Like, you can tell that he hates it so much.
And he's just dicking around at work and he's like...
Shove it down that barrel and shoot it at that boat. Well, don't just stand there.
Are we going to have to listen to this all day?
Yes.
It's like I remember just the drinking episode where like Adam's getting progressively more leery and Jamie is just downing shots of whiskey with absolutely no like emotion on his face whatsoever, just like shot after shot.
You can tell that he's getting more drunk in terms of the way that he speaks.
Yeah.
But his mannerisms don't change. He just stays like this robotic, stoic person just doing a shot like, yeah. Move on.
So we've had 13 drinks over 3 hours. I know I'm drunk, but I can't even remotely tell that you're drunk. It's kind of annoying.
It's not to say that Jamie doesn't have fun. You can clearly see that he does have fun doing like the things that he finds interesting, but he also doesn't hide when he's pissed off with people.
Oh yeah.
It's just so disheartening. Like they ended it so well. They ended on like a perfect note of let's do the biggest explosion ever. We had a recap episode where all the cast, like the main five, came back and talked about their favourite moments and thanked everyone, and you can feel like the grubbiness of the TV world and the production world of like, yeah, but make more with new people.
Mythbusters 2 is back. What?
And no offense to the people that wanted to be Mythbusters and got that job and all that, like fair play to them.
It was a very specific energy on the show. It's like, yes, the format was the same, but the energy was not. It's like, that show was Adam and Jamie. It was that relationship.
And then again, it was the relationship that they managed to foster with Tori, Grant and Carrie as well. And it's like, they clearly had many people helping them behind the scenes and helping them on the builds and stuff. And they clearly brought those three in specifically because they could feel that dynamic working over the years. And you can see them slowly get introduced and see like their first appearances on screen and stuff where they're super awkward about it. And
it was almost like parental, wasn't it? Like Adam and Jamie were just like the two drunk dads. Not two drunk dads, like the two goofy dads. And then like the kids who were like goofing off and stuff, and then you got like the one stern parent, the one jokey parent.
The only firing I heard of on set was like when they shocked Adam.
Okay. Did I describe anywhere?
I guess. I don't know. I mean, it like doesn't.
Oh!
Because they like electrocuted him, and apparently that was like one of the producers being like, no, like don't fake shock him, like actually shock this man, and apparently immediately fired because like he literally put him in danger, the level of electrocution that they did to him.
It's just that thing as well of like, if I can't trust people not to fuck around with electricity, you can't work on this show.
Like, this isn't Jackass.
Yeah.
This is a science show. We cannot be electrocuting each other and pretending that it was all a joke.
It's like, put a rubber mouse in the bathroom, whatever, yeah, but don't make it so I can't trust that people aren't fucking with experiments and electricity and things that could kill me.
And I guess one fitting thing to go to on that note is accidents.
Ooh, well, go ahead, go for it.
Because, the show, for the most part, apart from, that one example that probably set a precedent of don't fuck about because you'll be fired, we, tried to be as safe as possible during the experiments and stuff and, like, treat science with respect.
Please tell me, we're going to have the one where they nearly blew someone's house apart, right?
There's two big accidents here. The first one being the Esparto accident in 2009. The town of Esparto, California. It was shaken and windows were shattered by a blast created by 500 pounds or 230 kilos of ANFO during the filming of The Myth Knock Your Socks Off. Some residents were upset that the blast took place, quote-unquote, without telling anyone.
We're just going to blow up a giant explosive thing near your house.
Blew up 500 pounds of explosives by your house without mentioning it. Chief Barry Burns of the Esparto Fire Department had several firefighters present for the explosion, so they weren't aware of it, but he said that he made the decision to not notify anyone in town for safety's sake. Quote here, Mythbusters is supposed to be a really popular show. Everybody would have been out there. We would have had to cancel it because it would have been too dangerous. And I get that. Of like, if you announce, hey, Mythbusters about to do a big cool explosion right by your house,
you're going to go watch,
everyone's going to go along. And then that means that there's loads of people in unsafe areas right by a giant Anfo explosion.
And it's like, go look at the stuff that they have to do to protect their crew. Like when they're sat like hundreds of meters away from like a gun going off. Mm-hmm. And they're like behind like bulletproof glass on like all four sides.
Also at the same time, people were just sat in their homes and a giant, literal like window shattering explosion went off with no notification.
Yeah.
They could have at least been like, half an hour before, or 10 minutes beforehand, by the way. Don't leave your house, but a big explosion's going off, like, relatively nearby.
You just tell people there's some blasting going on nearby.
Yeah, it's representatives from the show replaced some of the windows that very same day. The experiment did put the hosts in 2011 special episode Location recounted that they have never returned to that quarry as a result of the mishap.
No shit.
Yeah, we did kind of blow out some people's windows. Maybe we shouldn't go back there. And again, like, I don't find those ones as interesting personally. I love the ones where it's like, does buttered bread fall down every time?
Just to watch them to come up with like the toast buttering and dropping machine. Yeah. So that's it. It's the making of that machine is more interesting than the solving of the myth itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care about that, but I do want to see them build the automatic toast butterer.
Bombs away!
Toast on deck.
Bombs away!
Toast on deck.
Bombs away!
Okay, my toast always lands butter side up.
All of the conveyor belt and everything to just come up with the smoothest way to butter and drop. And fairly drop.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, 'cause you
500 pieces of fucking toast.
Because you'd say, we'll just get a fucking intern to do it. It's like, but then the buttering won't be... And that's the thing I love as well. They say, well, we could do that, but then the buttering won't be uniform. And we won't get usable results.
Yeah.
So we need to have the exact same size piece of bread with the exact same amount of toasting and buttering done. Otherwise, the result... And that's the thing I love about it, is like the fact that they treat it like an actual experiment where, like, we're going to have the same scientific... an academic rigor that we would have if we were actually, doing this in a university.
I really like the ones where, like, creators, like, for example, it's Michael Bay, right, that did Titanic?
James Cameron.
James Cameron.
That's the joke, Michael Bay's Titanic, where just everything explodes, including the iceberg.
James Cameron came in for, like, well, I know that I'm right about the whole Rose and Jack on
the boat.
The door, well, not the boat, on the door at the end.
And they proved him wrong, yeah.
And then they prove him, and he's like, but I think I'm still right. It's like, come on, James. They had Vince Gilligan on for a couple of Breaking Bad things.
Yeah, the Breaking Bad ones are really fun, yeah, because Vince Gilligan's
he was just like, fair enough, I thought I was right on that one, but I guess I'm not.
So we do have, like, scientific, consultants come in and tell us that most of our stuff is right, but clearly we didn't do our due diligence in this regard.
Yeah, because I think the one that they proved definitively wrong was the melting someone in acid in a bathtub.
Yeah.
I guess you can't dissolve every part of a body in, like, just a tub of acid.
And I will say as well, in the show, they didn't fully dissolve the body.
Yeah, I think there is, like, some inconsistency, though, with what the results were with Mythbusters to the show. I can't quite remember, because, again, there's nearly 300 episodes of this stuff. It's hard to remember every experiment. But
artistic license is a thing.
Yeah. The other accident happened only
is
2
this
years
one
later.
Blew through someone's house, right?
Yeah, the cannonball chemistry experiment.
This one sounds terrifying.
It does. The Mythbusters crew accidentally sent a cannonball through the side of a house and into a minivan in Dublin, California neighborhood. Although the experiment was being carried out by the Alameda County Sheriff's Bomb Range under the supervision of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, an errant projectile went over its intended target of water barrels, instead skipped up a hill that was intended as a safety target, and it soared 700 yards into a neighbouring community, striking a house and leaving a 10-inch hole before striking the roof of another house and smashing through the window of a parked minivan.
Yep.
But nobody was actually hurt.
No one was hurt, but just how terrifying does that sound? It was just they launched a cannonball through a house.
You just sat at home and an entire cannonball just punctures a 10-inch hole through your house.
It's like the one that always gets me is when they do the can light a frozen turkey hitting a like a window do more damage than a regular turkey? And that one's always stupid. It's like, of course it does, because it's rock solid. Is the difference between some, but it's when they launch that frozen turkey and it just annihilates the plane fuselage.
You know, that's about one of the more destructive things that I've ever done. That was cool.
Yeah, that was exceedingly cool.
I think even they go like, oh my god, what did we just do?
Yeah.
When they see the damage that the turkey does.
One that you reminded me there was just like, oh, a bear just shredded through a plane and they repaired it with duct tape and it just fucking works.
No, yeah, they do like the duct tape episode, don't they? Like,
yeah, they do like 3 different duct tape specials where it's like, duct tape can just do anything.
It's so good.
We got fishing line, we got bailers, oars, duct tape, we have tarps, we have water bags, food bags, and a fishing spear.
And it's ridiculous. And obviously there's like the survival island one where clearly, like, you know, they didn't get left stranded on a desert island. They went to like a hotel every night.
Yeah.
Just then they managed to make like tents and
duct tape,
an entire raft with like bamboo and duct tape. Like they
it's
even
so
make
good.
Like water catchers.
Yep.
And a like giant water flask.
Yep.
To hold like loads of fresh water just out of duct tape on its own. It's great.
Duct tape is amazing.
We're sitting there in a canoe made of duct tape, paddling towards waves that are like 3 or 4 feet higher than the prow of our boat. Yeah.
It's just so versatile.
And it's got to be officially branded duct tape as well. Because when you get like the non-branded duct tape and it's shit, it's like Gorilla Glue, innit? If you don't get proper Gorilla Glue, so you can tell when it's not Gorilla Glue and it's like chimp putty or whatever.
They did say that one accident probably helped save other experiments that got all the way more large scale over the years from being more dangerous, because that was the moment where they went, oh shit, our safety procedures going to have to
be revamped,
be way, like, you know, more on top of our shit than we thought.
Because that reminds me of it's somewhat related, but there's this breakdown, like, what is the fastest object that has like ever been created? And everyone thinks like a rocket ship or a plane or maybe a bullet fired from a gun. It's like, no, what it probably was is a manhole cover. You're like, what? It's like, yeah, there was like some giant explosion of a rocket or something like that, and it sent a manhole cover into orbit. And there's like footage, if you can find it, of like just the slow-mo of like you see it and then it's gone, and they break it down frame by frame. He was probably traveling at like 19,000 miles an hour.
Later, however, he used this limited information to estimate the cap's velocity at a whopping 200,000 kilometers per hour, nearly 5 times the velocity required to break free of Earth's gravity.
Just this manhole cover, and it went into orbit, and it's like it might still be out there.
So as you see in the last season where they've got like a bigger budget and they're in like this underground bunker because the explosions are so big, it's some of the times where they're like, it's up. And you're just like, there's chunks of steel in the air somewhere.
Yeah.
And then like they're there for like 30 seconds just waiting it to come back down to Earth. Like, oh yeah, there we go. It was very, very popular and very, very influential. But the thing that gets me is there's just a picture here of like, the moment they did an episode where they just turned up at the White House with Barack Obama, and he's like, man, you have influenced an entire generation of like American kids to be encouraged about science, and like shakes the hand and like, can you do a myth for me? But they went to the White House.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
I am a big fan of the Mythbusters. I've even had them over to the White House a few times. Now, come to think of it, they never let me blow anything up, but I'm still going to miss them.
That's how influential they were to just the appeal of science at the time, and it probably still has ripples now to this day.
Oh yeah, I think everyone loves Mythbusters. Like, it's just a thing of like just some of the quotes as well. Remember, kids, if you don't write it down, you're just dicking around.
Yeah, it's not science unless you write it down.
Yeah, so otherwise you're just dicking around.
The other one of like failure is always an option.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's not a bad thing to fail.
Because you learn.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to like learn from what your failure was and improve.
It's like, it doesn't matter when you're doing science if like you're successful or not. Like, failure is always an option because you then learn from your failings and keep going forward.
Yes, and see what we can change. Like, there's always something to be learned, even from failure.
Spectacular TV show, done a world of good for many, many people, and I miss it greatly, but I respect the fact that they just were like, we've done like 13 years of this, we need to move on.
It has kept your insomniac ass, like, just entertained.
It has, and it continues to, both entertain and inform people to this very day. But yeah, I've spoke about this for far too long and could continue for far too long. But thank you all for watching, and I hope everyone has learned something in this episode.
Yes. Cheers, everybody.